Hi, this is Griselda Togobo, and this is a leadership podcast where I get the privilege to sit with some inspirational female leaders to share their stories with you and also to learn practical and simple strategies on how we can all win in the world of work. So today, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Rear Admiral Maria Aguayo. She has the most impressive career, and I've been stalking her for over 2 years now to get her to do this interview. So I'm not going to repeat her CV because it's pretty impressive and pretty long, but I'll just pull out a few highlights. So she's the commander of the U.S. Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command Atlantic, which is NAVFAC. She's the first female to oversee NAVFAC Atlantic, and she's dual-hatted as a U.S. Fleet Forces civil engineer. That sounds like a lot of work. She was formerly NAVFAC Chief of Staff in Washington, D.C. She has also been NAVFAC Commanding Officer in Naples. She holds an MSc Civil Engineering degree from Stanford, and she is the third female civil engineering corps to be elected as an admiral. Now, to me, that all sounds almost impossible to happen, considering that the number of women in the Navy is still in the single digit. So I'm really delighted to welcome you, Laurie, and you know, just to learn from you. And I know you're so busy, so thank you for taking time out of your schedule.
So, Laurie, let's start with your decision to join the Navy. What inspired you to make that leap?
So a little background on me. I'm an immigrant to the United States. My family's originally from Mexico. We were all born there. My family came to the United States when I was 5 years old. I didn't know anything about the Navy. I did not come from a family of military members. But when I was in high school, I had a high school counselor, who introduced me to the Navy. He called me in and said, "Hey, the Naval Academy recruiters are on campus today. I think they might have something you'll be interested in. Why don't you go listen to their presentation?" And I did. And that was my first introduction into the Navy. But I really felt a calling. It was just interesting. I was just very intrigued by all the opportunities that the Naval Academy would allow. In particular, you know, being stationed by oceans. I wanted at the time to be an ocean engineer. They had the right degree for me. Being able to always be surrounded or being around the ocean was very attractive to me. The athleticism, the discipline, the leadership opportunities that I knew it would present, again, were all very much just calling me. It's hard to say, it's hard to explain because it was just something I had not experienced before. And ultimately, of course, you know, my family had always been very appreciative of the United States.
Yeah.
As an immigrant, and being able to give back to the country was important to me as well.
Yeah, but you talk about leadership opportunities, but at the time you joined, and even now, it's not something that is easily available to women, to immigrants. So what made you, how have you been able to break through that glass ceiling? What qualities do you think helped you to do that?
That's a good point, Griselda. You know, when I first joined, I joined in 1989 when I started doing my ROTC preparations, but I got commissioned as an officer in 1993. And you're absolutely right. Back in 1993, yes, I got commissioned as a civil engineer corps officer, but there was one area that was closed to women. We could not go and lead in mobile construction battalions. So in certain CB units, they were still closed off to women. So when I first came in, that was the world we were in. Women couldn't fly combat aircraft, couldn't serve on combat ships. But that did change in, I think it was 1994. The law changed, and it opened up these combatants to women. And so for my community, there was all of a sudden, there was no restriction anymore on where I could serve. So that barrier was removed literally by law, but then it was up to me to then take that opportunity, right? Because I didn't have to go serve in one of these units that had just recently been open, and it was going to be challenging. Anytime you have an all male type of command and you just open it to women, you know that it's going to be challenging. But I did have that opportunity. I sat there and I thought about it, and I said, well, I need to jump in there and just go for it. It really is. They needed women to help lead that transition.
Yeah.
And so I was young. I had just finished my first tour, which was in Spain, actually. So I was still probably only about 24 years old, maybe 25, but I saw it as an opportunity, and there was a need, right? There was a need. And so I took it. And so I guess that would be there are many times that there are opportunities out there that may be challenging, may be difficult.
Yes.
But my biggest, I guess the way I've seen it is, don't take the easy path, right? We've got to break through that. And it is just so rewarding when, I know it can be a little scary at times. And so, like I said, I was very young. I was still relatively new to the Navy, but I took it, and then it was one of the most rewarding things I could have done. So I would advise everyone, when you see that door open a little bit, go for it, see what you can do to get yourself in there, because while it may be hard, and there'll be moments that you're kind of wondering, well, how, why am I doing this? But at the end, I can assure you, it is incredibly rewarding, because it opens up a lot of opportunities for others as well.
Because I know, as you climb the ladder, a lot of people exit, and you have held on, and you've just talked about difficult times, but persevering despite those difficulties. But what sort of mindset do you need to have to hold on when you're just holding on for dear life, when you're feeling the strain of that? Because I think that's what gets to a lot of people, the stresses of it, the strain of it, the sacrifices, and then you start to doubt whether it's actually worth it. So I'm really intrigued to know, because you had a lot of firsts as well. So you didn't see anyone ahead of you, but you persevered.
I think for me, it was a strong, I guess I had a strong calling for the change, right? The knowing that it was all in service of my country. I knew it was going to be hard, but I also knew that it was in the best interest of really our Navy, and everybody I served with. And honestly, I think the biggest thing is you have to have confidence in yourself. You have to have confidence. You have to know that with good preparation, you have to prepare yourself. And whatever field that you're in, right? You have to be prepared. You can't just go in and wing it, right? You prepare yourself as best as you can. You have to be disciplined about it. And then that self-confidence to say, I can do this. I can be the one to lead that battalion, take on that different command, whatever it may be. You have to have your self-confidence to do it, and have real belief in the mission of what you do. I think that's what drives you, right? If you truly believe in the mission of your organization, it is a huge motivator to persevere through the difficult. And again, there is difficult, but there's also tremendous reward, tremendous. And so you work through all the challenges, and at the end, you can sit back and take a breath and say, it was hard maybe along the way, but look at the greatness that came out, either in the mission or how we helped develop our people, the differences that we made in people's lives. So I think you have to believe in your mission, right? You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to be prepared. You have to be very disciplined about it, and have confidence in yourself that you can, in fact, make that difference.
So, Laurie, you're very generous in crediting others for helping you realize your true potential. And you say mentors have played a huge part in your career. So how have you been able to identify the right mentors? How have you sought them out, and how have they supported you at key points in your career?
Yeah, thanks, Crystal. This is a great question. And I truly have my mentors to thank, because there are times, when you're having some challenges that you may have some doubt. And it was my mentors that they always had faith in me, right? They always had faith. They always encouraged me. How do I develop the mentors? It starts with with building a relationship. So along my career, and the reality is because I've mainly worked with men, most of my mentors have been men, right? It's just because of the nature of what I do. But these are people that I built relationships and trust, right? It's all about trust.
Yes.
It's trust. And so those relationships that are built on trust. And then with that, I know that I can go to them or they come to me. Sometimes it goes both ways. There are times that I reach out to somebody to get some advice or some thoughts, guidance.
Yeah.
And there are times that they actually reach to me. I've had that, it still happens to me. The other day, I got contacted by somebody I knew a while ago, and they said, "Hey, how are you doing? How are things going? We know that it can be lonely at the top, as we often say. How are things going for you?" And then we can have a conversation because you have the trust. These are people that I looked up to, that I respected their leadership style.
Yeah.
And so it has to go both ways. I reach to them, they reach to me, and having that relationship on trust and knowing that they really are looking out for my best interest has been absolutely critical to my career because you're going along. Sometimes you have to make decisions, right? Again, I talk a lot about opportunities. You can make this decision or that decision. And talking to people to say who have gone through it before, it's important to be able to bounce some ideas. So it is very, very critical to build mentorship. And part of it is sometimes just asking someone, will you be my mentor? I mentor a lot of people. There are people, civilians and military, who have officers and enlisted who have come to me and said, will you mentor me? And of course I will. I will always make that time because it has made a huge difference in my career. And if I can make a little bit of that difference in somebody else's, absolutely, I'll take that time.
So you talk about leadership style. How would you describe your leadership style?
Oh, well, I'm a person that is, I'm very process oriented. So I ask a lot of questions. People sometimes told me, I like to get feedback about my style too. Well, you ask a lot of questions, and so I like to let people know I ask a lot of questions not because I'm questioning how much they know, because I truly, sincerely want to better. I value them. I value the person I'm talking to because they're a subject matter expert in whatever area they work in. And I value that. And so I want to learn from them as much as I can learn. And so I do ask a lot of questions to make sure that I'm learning along the way too. So my style is one of respect. It's a mutual respect.
Yes.
I value what everybody brings something to the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I value that. I like to get to know my people. I think I'm pretty personable, and so I find people fascinating. I try to understand what motivates them. Everyone is motivated by something different. And honestly, that took me a little while to understand that, to be honest. I grew up thinking, well, everyone is kind of like me. Everyone's motivated by the same things I am. And it took a little while in my career to finally realize that's not the case. Everyone is in fact motivated by different things. And we need to understand what motivates our people so we can leverage that, right? And bring out the most in everybody. But you do that by building the trust and by setting a climate that allows them to really come to their absolute most potential. And I think that's important. So I like to get to know my people on a personal level.
Yeah.
I can be very, I am a very disciplined person. So I will be blunt as well. I will speak my mind, and I set clear expectations, but I'm open, I'm transparent. I'm a very transparent person. But I will, when things are not going well, or if something, hey, let's get real here, right? Let's get real. Let's be honest with one another as to why things did not go well. And it's not a gotcha game, but it's we've got to be honest with each other so we can get better.
Yeah. So it's really interesting that you talk about being blunt and being direct, but the data tells us that women get penalized, particularly immigrants, particularly women, for being blunt, for being assertive. That is what we want to see in our leaders, but at the same time, we penalize women who come across like that. Did you face any of that? Did you have to navigate or change your style based on that?
I don't think so. I honestly, what I have found is, if people see that that you're authentic, that you are there, that's really key, because you can change your leadership. In one moment, you can have one style, and then all of a sudden you might have to, because of the situation, change to a more direct style of leadership.
Yeah.
So if people know you and trust you and know that you're authentic, they will respect the fact that sometimes you have to
Yes.
switch to a different leadership style based on the situation, especially in the military. There are just times I'm not going to ask questions. I'm just going to go, and I'm going to be very directive. I served in Afghanistan, and there are times that you have to be very decisive and go with it. And again, if you have the respect and the trust of your people, they will understand that. They will understand that there are times for everything. And I, fortunately, I feel like because of the trust I've been able to build, and the mutual respect with the people I've served with and the people I've led, I never really felt that was necessarily a problem for me. I think, again, you build an environment of respect, and people understand.
Yeah, fantastic. So as a civilian, I look at you and I'm amazed that you're able to lead the battalion. You're able to take troops into areas where some of us, we can't even sit down to have a coffee because we're scared for dear life. So how do you juggle that constant need for survival, for lives, with the stresses of doing that? How do you juggle that responsibility? It sounds like a huge sense of responsibility to carry.
It is, absolutely. I mean, when you're in charge of people's lives, there's nothing more important than that, right?
Yeah.
And I take that responsibility incredibly, heavily, obviously. So you really have to compartmentalize what's going on at any given time, and I've learned to do that. Right? You have to. You have to make sure that you're focused, stay focused on the mission, and stay very disciplined towards that mission. And yes, it's heavy. It's a heavy burden to carry, right? A very heavy burden and I'll be honest. And when I served, I led a battalion in Afghanistan for 8 months, and yeah, every day I physically felt that burden. You do, and we should, right? Because decisions I was making could make a big impact in that. So, I learned to compartmentalize, stay focused, always do what's right for the mission and for the command. Sometimes it can be difficult because there might be an individual, right? And you do have to look at the individual case, but ultimately you do have to do what is the best thing for the command and to pursue that mission while taking care of the safety, doing everything you can to mitigate the safety of your people. So that's how I approached it. I did compartmentalize the little bit that I had maybe in the evening, before going to bed. You have to find a way to channel that in some way. I do read, and so it was my way to kind of just read something for an hour or so before going to bed, just to help also, because you need to help, you need to treat yourself also mentally and physically, and make sure you're prepared for that level of responsibility. Yeah. So you, and then of course, again, I can't say enough. The people that you lead need to trust that you have their best interest in mind. And if you have that, and if you can do that, it's amazing what you can do with a unit, because everyone is inspired to get after the mission. They're inspired to take care of, and it comes together nicely, actually.
I feel when people say they're inspired by me, I feel the weight of it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not Superwoman. I'm not this. Why are you inspired by me? But you make it sound so matter of fact, you have to show up at that level to keep the people looking at you, trusting in you and your ability to get them, where they need to get to. So when it comes to women, myself included, I've read that you say we put barriers, false barriers in our own way. There's the personal barriers, there's the environment we work in as well. But from your experience, how can we train ourselves to see the opportunities? And you've said a lot about opportunities rather than the obstacles, because some of us just see locked doors and barriers in front of us rather than the potential that challenge may present.
Yeah, I would say when I think about, my career, and again, there were some barriers that were real, right? Like I mentioned, there was a law that said I couldn't go, but so there was nothing I could do because it was written in law. That changed. And along the way, fortunately, the Navy is fantastic. There are so many different types of jobs, billets that we can go to. And we have a couple things, right? You have to decide where you want to go, but then you have to go talk to people and tell them that you want to do that. You can't just sit back and expect things to just kind of fall on your lap either. So yeah, opportunities are there, but sometimes you have to work a little bit harder by making sure that you are talking to whether it's mentors or people in the position who can make those decisions as to, who make the decisions as to who goes where, who does what. And lean in, and say, hey, I really think I want to do that. What do I need to do to prepare myself to do that job when I'm a lieutenant commander, when I'm a commander? How can I best prepare myself for that? And yeah, some people might, sometimes along the way, people are people. There are those that will welcome you. There are those that may not as much.
Yeah.
But I go back to, I don't worry about what other people may think or not think. You prepare yourself, and if it's what you know that you have the skill set to do, and you want to do it, just put yourself out there. Put yourself out there. Surround yourself by people that can help you, though, right? We can't do this alone. This is not any given position that you're in. If you isolate yourself, it probably is not going to go very well. No. So you can prepare yourself. You can make sure you have the right skill set to do that job, that position, that leadership position. But also make sure you're surrounding yourself by trusted advisors, right? That you can bounce ideas with, because that will make you better. That will make you a better person. If no one person has all the answers. I don't have all the answers. And so when I do have the opportunity, it's something that I have time to think about and to make a decision, I reach out to others and bounce those ideas. But I guess going back to specifically as a woman, you will always run into people that have whatever opinions. Yeah. I just don't let that stop you. Go after those jobs, prepare yourself with the skill set, let people know that you're interested and why you're interested and why you think you're the right person for that job. And don't give up. Sometimes the answer will be no. Yes. And I've had that too. I've had it too, where the answer was initially no. And it is disappointing. I understand that it can be disappointing, but it didn't stop me from doing my absolute best to continue to prepare myself and ask again at a later time. And then the opportunity did open itself, right? So, that would be my biggest. Again, you have the false barriers and the real barriers.
Yes.
Barriers, you have to climb right over those. You got to climb right over those.
Yeah. Oh, I love that distinction. So there's a story online about you being elected to join and to lead a group, a battalion of really macho people. And some of the people in the group, men, said they were a little concerned about your ability to lead this group. And you handled it really well. I'd love you to share that story. How did you deal with it? What was your experience leading that group? Because it just sounds really intriguing.
Yeah, this was a long time ago, when that transition that I mentioned earlier,
yes,
when certain combatant units were open to women. It was like anything, you're transitioning into something new. So there were challenges along the way. I think the Navy handled it very well in terms of opening those opportunities, but you always have individuals, right? Individual people that maybe don't necessarily agree with those decisions. But I had a wonderful boss, and he had selected me to lead this group, and because he felt I was the right leader for the job. He got some pushback from his bosses, right, further above. Um, Not so sure that I, because being a woman, that I was the right person to lead this group in that particular scenario. And so again, my boss was fantastic. He's like, well, I'll ask her, but I don't see why she can't do this, right? And so they came to me and asked me, if I was maybe uncomfortable because where we were going, and was a place where, according to them, this was their words, that there were a lot of macho men. And I just smiled. I just smiled and I laughed, and I said, I come from Mexico, and I think the word macho maybe came from Mexico. I know how to handle I know how to handle macho men. I grew up, in a country that that's where the word came from, I guess. So it was like, look, I'm not worried about that. I can handle this. I'm excited about the opportunity, and I will lead our troops into this mission that we had. And it was wonderful. Like I said, my boss was always on my side. He was always
Brilliant.
on my side. And so he said, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. And he sent me on the mission. And actually, yeah, there were a couple, challenges on the mission. But again, I knew my role. I knew my role as the leader of the mission. I made sure everybody else understood their roles. I set clear expectations and roles and responsibilities within my unit. And as a matter of fact, we did very, very well, and got a lot of praise on this particular mission that we went on, and how well we integrated with the other countries that we were working with. So again, it goes back to, be prepared, build relationships, and ultimately accomplish a mission. Accomplish what you said you were going to do. That's the best possible reflection you can have. Is, hey, we had a mission. This is what we were supposed to do, and we did it, and we did it well.
So what qualities made you great in that situation? So if we look at good leadership and great leadership, what qualities will turn someone from a good one to an absolutely exceptional leader, someone you pull out from a pack?
Yeah, I think I think the resiliency, right? The resiliency is really going to be key. Obviously, we have a lot of good leaders, and I know a lot of it. And then you have great leaders, absolutely. I'm reading some books right now on some great leaders as well. But I think when you see a leader that does meet challenges, right, and is able to be resilient and continue to move forward and lead their people. In this particular challenge, I was still relatively young when I did this particular mission that I was just mentioning. I was still a lieutenant at the time, but you have a group that you're leading, and they saw that there was maybe one challenge after another after another. But they saw me push through that, and so some of them came in with a certain perception. And I started seeing their change, right, and their perception as we continued down the mission. So I think resiliency is going to be important. Authenticity, I can't stress that enough, how important it is to be authentic. The humility, the authenticity to show that your people, that you really do care about them, is important in a leader. And ultimately, a leader needs to be competent, right? They need to get it done. Leaders really get it done, but inspire your people to lead you. Really, an inspiration of others to want to follow you, I think is very, very key in a great leader.
So looking back at the younger Lori, 93, 94, what leadership advice would you have given yourself then?
Wow. Yeah. I think back when I first came in, and as a woman, right? I came into the Navy, got commissioned in 1993. And I had kind of this self thought of, hey, just don't do anything to stand out, as a woman, right? Just do everything, keep your head down, do your job, do it well, but don't make any noise as a woman, right? And honestly, it took me some time to self-reflect on that and finally realize that I was making a huge mistake, right? I was making a huge mistake. And so if I were to go back and say, hey, the fact that I am a woman and the diversity that I brought to my units, right,
Yeah.
and the positions that I was leading in, it's actually something we should embrace, not try to hide or not hide, but just kind of try to keep low. Um, I do believe in diversity. I do believe that
Yep.
diversity makes an organization so much stronger. And again, coming in surrounded by a lot of men, great men, and please, one of the reasons I stayed in the Navy, I think you asked what made me want to stay, but I work with the most amazing, amazing leaders, and what made me want to stay was to continue to be part of this wonderful
Yep.
organization. But my point is bringing in a diverse thought, diverse, backgrounds that I know I brought a different background. It took me a little while, but I finally embraced that and said, this is actually a good thing. This is good.
Yeah.
I actually add value with that. And but that took me a little while. I'll be honest. It took me a little while throughout my career to have to come to that realization that I should absolutely embrace it, not just for myself, but for others as well, and that we should, in fact, uh, promote that because
Yep.
it is goodness within the organization. It will make us stronger when we have different opinions,
Yep.
different ways of approaching a problem, and that is done by people who think differently. If we all thought the same way and had the same background, we probably would all come up with the same answer, right? But if we
Yep.
have diversity, we will come up with different types of problem solving solutions.
Fantastic. So is there a situation or a challenge, a failure that you would like to have a second chance at?
It's how I grew up. I don't know that to say I would want a second chance, but I would certainly encourage anybody coming in now to absolutely embrace that. Right? We are all we are all motivated to join the Navy for whatever reason, for many
Yep.
different reasons. We all come from different backgrounds. We all grew up in different cities. What I love about the Navy, it brings people from so many different backgrounds and to work together as a team. Um, but that we anybody who comes in today should embrace whatever that background is. Embrace it. Know that you're don't be afraid to provide your ideas. Sometimes you might think, well, that's not probably I don't really have a good idea. You do have a good idea. You probably don't even know because it's so maybe so different than others' ideas
Yep.
that you think maybe it's a wrong idea. And I would encourage everyone, absolutely not. It's those different ideas that sometimes spark a light and say, hey, we never thought about it that way. And so I highly encourage everyone to understand the value that they bring from day one and to be open and provide their thoughts, their ideas, because it will make us and the United States Navy stronger.
Fantastic. So last question, we're running out of time, but I am really fascinated about routines and how people just wake up and build the habits that make them who they are. And I'm really fascinated by your routine. Can you just share whether you have a regular wake up time, what you do? Do you have any health routines you follow? So we can all be a bit like Lori.
Yeah, as I mentioned, especially when I was in Afghanistan, you have to find ways to deal with stress.
Yeah.
Obviously, stress is a part of life. Stress will make you better, but at times stress can go a little bit over, right,
But
and can
yeah.
cause health issues, right? It can get, and you don't want it to get to that. So I've always been one to work out. I love running. Running has been something I've been doing since I was young. Um, I think I remember doing my first 5K back when I was like 13. My dad took me to a little race, but running is kind of my way of stress relief.
Good.
But I like swimming. I like any form of exercise. So I do get up every morning early, and I get it in the first thing in the morning. So I'm often up before 5 in the morning, um,
Oh,
and I'll go running. I'll go swimming. I'll do some weights. I do that first thing, and I do it first thing in the morning because I know my days get so busy. It's so unpredictable. My schedule is always in flux, as I know you know, because we've been trying to set up for a little while. And so if I don't get up and do it first thing in the morning, it's going to be too hard later in the day. And it's too important to me. You know, it's very important to me to get the workout in because it helps me with my health and my overall well-being. So I get up first thing, I go for my run. And then I'm at work, you know, and start my work routine. I try to get in bed. You know, the one thing I will say, sleep is something that when I was younger, I thought I could maybe, you know, push off sleep as something not as important. And I will tell you, sleep has become one of my priorities now. There's a lot of data about the importance of sleep on the brain, right? On the brain, ability to really think clearly and make decisions. And I'm in a position that I'm making important decisions. So I have got to make sure that my brain is working properly. And so sleep is probably the best thing you can do for that. And so I try really hard to get myself into bed, you know, around 10 o'clock or so, and at least get, you know, 6.5 to 7 hours. I know preferably it's 8. But I've got to make sure that I'm getting myself a decent amount of sleep so I can in fact think clearly and stay alert. So that's kind of my routine. Early, go to bed at a decent hour. I do try to eat healthy. I'm a pretty generally very, you know, salads, you know, sort of thing. I do enjoy a lot of fruits and vegetables. But I will say I do have my downfall, right? Like, you know, chocolate and sweets, I will say every once in a while having a little bit, is a little bit of pleasure that I will partake in every once in a while.
It gives life the flavor. And then what book would you recommend to the audience? What leadership books?
Well, I'm an engineer. There is a book that I would recommend. I read it maybe about, I don't know, 6 months ago or so. But I'm an engineer. So for any of your listeners that are engineers,
we have lots of engineers.
Yes, there's a book called The Great Bridge by David McCullough. And it's about the Brooklyn Bridge. It's about the making of the Brooklyn Bridge. And what's interesting, and I think maybe your audience would find interesting, is so it's very detailed about the engineering. So if you're an engineer, it is very, very, very interesting book. Because of course the Brooklyn Bridge is still standing. It's amazing what they were able to do back in the late 1800s. But what's really interesting is the chief engineer, Washington Roebling, you know, the chief engineer of the bridge, he got sick, and it was his wife. Emily, it was his wife, Emily, who became his eyes and ears on the job site. You know, she would, because he was bedridden, and she was the one that would take his notes, would go to the job site, come back, let him know what she saw. So this was again in the late 1800s, and her role in the building of the bridge is pretty monumental as well. So it was an interesting book for me from the perspective of the engineer, but also the role that his wife played in the building of this great bridge. So.
Oh, that's such a wonderful story to end on. And Laurie, thank you so much. I know you have so much to get back to, but your story has been so inspiring, and I'm sure so many people will take so much out of it, and I have gotten a lot out of it as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Griselda. Again, this to me is important that we sit and we talk about you know, what works for one person, and talk to as many people as possible. You know, I'm always one about many mentors, because I can tell you about my life story and what works for me, but everybody is a little bit different. And I think bringing us together to talk about, give us some ideas on how to, you know, continue to proceed in our careers and our goals as women. I think this is fascinating, and I think it's wonderful to bring us together. Thank you for what you do in sharing, you know, these important advice and encouraging women to really be the absolute best that they can be. Thank you for what you do.
Well, for me, I told my niece Clanam that I was interviewing you, and when I told her about you, she was like, "Oh my God, Auntie, I want to be just like her.
Aw.
So it's not just about us, the older ones, but it's the next generation. And I know for a fact that little Griselda, had I been exposed to women like yourself when I was much younger, I mean, I became an engineer, but who knows what I would have done within the profession. So thank you so much for being you, and keep smashing those ceilings and those doors, and keep being the first, because we absolutely need you to stay there.
Thank you, Griselda. I appreciate that so much. And again, thank you for this opportunity to talk to your audience, and look forward to hopefully meeting someday.
Yes, yes. When I come to the States, I'll let you know.
Please do. Please do.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.